Hey guys, welcome back to the Sweet Take, the Paddock's best kept secret and milkshakes interview series. I'm super excited for our special guest today. He has been trackside full time for the last 8 years. You've seen his photos, you've reposted them, you've zoomed into Charles Leclerc's jawline because of them. It's the one and only Michael Potts. Let's go behind the scenes with F1's favorite photographer. Michael, so excited to have you here with us today.
How you doing? This is brilliant. Good to be here.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm very excited to chat with you because there has been a lot of drama this year already. But before we get started, though, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
I've been photographing Formula One since 2018, and I work as a freelancer. So that means I can pretty much describe my own brief, head to the interesting part of the track, follow the stories that I think are going to be interesting. And it is a brilliant experience being this close to the cars and the drivers. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the work that I produce.
Yes, we are massive fans over here at Milkshake. I'd love to know what was the moment or experience that you had at the beginning of your F1 journey that you thought, okay, I'm going to do this full time.
So the first race that I covered was Azerbaijan 2018. I only got my confirmation about 2 or 3 days before the race. So I rushed out of the house, rushed out so quickly that I didn't pack proper shoes and I did the entire race in slippers. But it was amazing because he's so close to the cars, and I'd been photographing Formula One for years as a fan, and there was always a big gap between where I could stand and where the cars were. When you shoot it professionally, you're right there, and I thought I was doing all right. Then towards the end of the race, I was shooting down the main straight, and I saw the two Red Bulls coming towards me, and they'd been quite close throughout. But then all of a sudden, Daniel hit Max, and the two cars spun straight towards me, sparks flying everywhere. It was incredible. And I turned around and I didn't see a single photographer from where I was. And having that moment, that brilliant piece of action that no one else caught was kind of infectious. And going back into the media center that afternoon, knowing that you've got the shot, that was the feeling that I really wanted to recreate week in, week out.
That's really cool. I remember that particular moment too, because I'm pretty sure it was featured in Drive to Survive when it talked about the Daniel
Yes.
versus Max days and, maybe some of the reasons why Daniel ended up leaving Red Bull. But that's really cool that you were right there.
Yeah, I mean that was the moment that there was a divergence between Daniel and Red Bull because Red Bull didn't back him up. During that weekend, I saw him quite a lot having conversations with Helmut Marko and Christian Horner. It looked like they were in negotiations for a contract extension and all the rest of it. And he seemed pretty happy. He was having a very good season up until that point. Max looked like he was the future, but Daniel was still producing better results on track. And that moment changed everything.
Well, let's come back to that point in just a second when we talk about Cadillac and potentially who could be in that scene and is Daniel a good candidate. But before we get there, is there a moment in your career as an F1 photographer that you missed and that you still think about that you could have been there should, you know, the circumstances allow?
There were a few races that I'd wished I'd covered. That for one other reason. I think the last one was probably Australia 23. And if you remember the race, there was a restart right at the end of the race, and both Alpines collided with each other. But it was one of those races that so much had happened, and I decided not to do it. I then got a few offers from clients who really needed photographs from it, and it would have been quite lucrative to do, but I committed to other things. And then watching the race and seeing how exciting it was, I was really kicking myself that I didn't go to that. So I
Yeah.
think that's the most recent one that I'm regretting. And then pretty much every day in the media center, you walk past somebody's computer and you see a shot and you go, "Oh wow, I wish I'd taken that."
I'm sure. Do you plan your shots or what percentage of it is all instinct?
I definitely plan where I'm going to go. I choose where I'm going to be, and that is largely based on what session we're in. So if we're in qualifying, you want to be somewhere there where the cars are really pushing to the edge. So in China, that last corner where they might go into the gravel, Bahrain this weekend, where they're going to go round turn 9 and 10 at night in qualifying, there'll be lots of sparks. So I tend to try and find places where it's going to be interesting. Think about a good start shot, which might have an accident involved. And so you start looking for the incidents and then you kind of work backwards from that. So that's choosing where to go. And then you kind of get a sense of what the photograph is going to be at each corner. So that's through experience and through just looking at the conditions on the day. So yes, they are planned, but a lot of it's just because you know where the things are going to be at each race.
Right. And then the track, the grid walk, the paddock stuff, all that are candids, right? That, as you're there,
Yes.
you snap those up. Yeah. Nice. Well,
Occasionally, occasionally get to work with some of the influencers and actors on the grid, and there you can post them up a little bit. So that, yeah, there is a little bit of that, but it's generally all candid.
okay, cool. Well, let's definitely dive into some of the top headlines dominating the first three races this year, of which there are so many. We can't, honestly, Michael, we can't talk unless we talk about the Red Bull drama
Yeah.
that's going on with Liam and Yuki and the replacement. So I'd love to hear your take on everything.
Well, so let's go back to Abu Dhabi last year, and it looked like Checo was not going to continue. I had quite a few friends in the Yuki camp, and at the start of the weekend there was a bit of optimism, but then the realization kind of creeped in that it wasn't going to be him, and there was a real sense of injustice because Yuki's been there for 4 seasons at the time. He's done relatively well. He's held up against Pierre Gasly quite nicely. He's been faster than his other teammates, and he does look like a very, very fast driver. And then when it was announced that Liam was going to get it, it just felt a little bit unfair. But Liam is a great kid, and he was doing very well. His wheel-to-wheel racing against Checo was fantastic. So, we might have not seen what Red Bull had seen. I was very surprised to see how much he struggled. I initially thought that there was a problem with the car, something wrong with the floor,
Hmm.
because to have such a deficit between him and Max in those first opening races was very, very unexpected. It didn't look like there was a huge deficit in testing. So yes, very, very surprised. I think Red Bull probably did the right thing in making the swap. And it's a little bit hard to say because we've just come from Japan and every person at the track wanted Yuki to succeed. So
Yeah.
I've just been absorbed in this kind of Yuki bubble, and I haven't really heard much about everyone being upset about Liam. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I thought he did all
I
right, actually.
Yuki
Yeah,
in Japan?
yeah, I thought he handled himself very well. I thought he did very well in the press conferences. He had that right balance between not being overwhelmed, but not being, yeah, yeah,
Overconfident.
overconfident.
Yeah.
There was a nice moment when they asked him how he was handling the pressure, and he said he just was interested about when they were going to serve lunch. But yeah, I think he'll be all right. I think he'll do okay.
Yeah, I mean, two races, literally, he was 2 weeks on the job, which is a very short probation period, it feels like, for in any rookie in any sport. But one at his driver interview after Shanghai, I heard him talking about how because he started in 20, that they changed the car drastically to maybe suit his driving style a bit more, make him more balanced. All those changes didn't actually improve anything. So I'm wondering if like the data that they got from that race just made, help them make the decision is we don't have enough time to help develop Liam in this car and let's try and see if we can fit another driver with a driving style closer to Max that can help us advance the team. So that leads me to my next question. Do you think that this second seat is actually cursed? And have Red Bull shot themselves in the foot by developing the car so much to Max's driving style that no one can kind of step up to the plate?
I don't know about Kirst. Daniel was in the second seat and he was fine. Checo's won races in the second seat, and there's a few drivers have got podiums, or maybe just Alex has got podium in it. What I don't understand is if Racing Bulls is the development team, why doesn't it have a similar development ideology to Red Bull? Why don't they make the car similar so that they know that if they put a driver into Racing Bulls, he's going to end up being able to drive a Red Bull? And it sounds like those two cars are as far apart as you can possibly imagine. So yeah, that's a bit of a peculiarity. There seems to be a lack of through thought throughout the entire Red Bull organization. I think they've lucked into some amazing drivers, some brilliant designers, and it's worked. But true brilliance is be able to repeat that over and over again. They haven't yet demonstrated that they can do that. They've put through Sebastian, Daniel, and Mac, maybe Kvyat to an extent, but they haven't really put through that many drivers who have been successful, even though they've pushed many drivers into their system. And they don't seem to be able to convert those good drivers into really good drivers. They all seem to flourish when they go to other seats, Carlos or Pierre. And that just kind of shows that they might not be the full thought process in that team, which might make that seat look cursed.
Well, yeah, that's a very good point around, the Red Bull organization haven't exactly put together the building blocks for drivers to advance from point A to point B and like, keep developing them up versus they're really looking for that needle in the haystack like Max that can
Mm.
miraculously come onto the team and results start to happen right away.
And that covers over all of their shortcomings in planning and structure and everything like that. So yeah. And I
Yeah.
think Max is even doing that to this car. He's making this Red Bull look like it's a race winning car when it
Right.
shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, his win at Tokyo, which was the most boring race of all time, but good for him because he really executed on that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the support for Liam versus Yuki.
Mm.
I find the difference quite stark. I think I read that Liam said the only person or only driver that's ever congratulated him about his promotion to Red Bull was Daniel, which I thought was kind of funny because he replaced Daniel at Racing Bulls. But on the flip side, Yuki talked about Checo calling him and giving him advice and kind of like his work dad and his, obviously he's good friends with Pierre and Pierre, sitting down with him and saying, hey, here's all the things I would do differently if I had the opportunity over again. It just feels like the support for Liam versus Yuki is very different.
Yeah, I don't know. But I can. There were a couple of nice things that happened this weekend. So when Liam arrived at the track on Thursday, all of the Racing Bull guys met him, and they had his pit board with a sign saying,
Yeah.
"Welcome back, we miss you." And that was a really nice thing to see. He was also in a press conference with Pierre, and obviously Pierre is very good friends with Yuki, but Pierre suffered a similar fate. Was I don't know, eight races, 9 races into his career at Red Bull before he was sent back.
Hmm.
Wasn't very many, and it looked like he could never get onto terms with that car. And we can now see that he's a very, very good racing driver. So in the press conference, he was asking Liam a few questions, and it looked like he was giving him some advice about what to do now that this has happened. I think Max was very supportive of Liam as well. I think Max really pushed for Liam to stay. But yeah, it's hard to really know because drivers generally don't talk about that. But there is an interesting thing with the way Red Bull set up their garage. Helmut Marko sits in Max's side of the garage. Christian Horner walks through to Max's side. He usually talks to Max before the start of the session and he goes and sits on the wall. Very rarely do either of them go over to the second car. And at the start of the first session, both of them were next to Yuki, both of them giving him advice. And it was interesting to see that there was much more involvement from both of those in Yuki. So I think they realized they have to make it work because they don't have another driver that they can plug in this year. And I bet they're kicking themselves that they got rid of Daniel when they did because he's got the experience to be able to pull this car off, I think.
Wow, very, very interesting, especially that piece about, coming over and supporting the second driver. That just seems, yeah, that's very interesting. Obviously, I love the candid photos that you take and, seeing what the drivers and people, the paddock's expressions are when they don't, think that other people are seeing them. What have you noticed or observed about Liam's confidence, around all of this?
He definitely had more of a spring in his step last year. He has been through a very, very difficult time. So he's come through many different categories and he's been successful in them. So he's been successful in Super Formula in Japan as well as F2, F3. And those are all different types of cars. So it proves that he can drive well. He came into Formula One this year with a lot of confidence and a fair touch of arrogance. Some of his comments on in interviews, you would have liked him to have made maybe 2 or 3 races in once he had established himself and once, he had something to back up those comments. But yeah, he definitely looks a lot more worn, a lot more sort of there's a lot more pressure on his shoulders now, a lot more forward brow, a lot more sort of scratching his head and sort of hunched back. Yeah, you can definitely start seeing the pressure coming through, especially when he's just come out of the car.
Yeah. I honestly feel for Liam. I mean, I think it's important that any athlete has self-belief and that that they're confident in their abilities. But yeah, I mean, I honestly wonder what happens, behind closed doors, and is he really doing okay? And I actually think this will be a good thing for him, just like how it was a good thing for Alex and Pierre when it happened too. So yeah.
But it must be such a, you've your whole life, you've put every moment into being a Formula One racing driver. His parents have invested in it. They've put so much of they've risked pretty much their entire futures on him. And to have made it to that top tier, to be in a car that could win a race, could win a championship, and then to have all of that taken away with two races, yeah, I can't even begin to imagine what that's like. I mean, coming down for Christmas and having all the toys that you've ever wanted, just to have
Yeah.
them taken away before you've even played with them. Yeah, it's cruel.
Yeah. Well, we wish him all the best as well as Yuki, and I'm like very excited to see what happens this weekend in Bahrain. Let's switch over to another headline that has been ongoing, which I personally love talking about, is Lewis at Ferrari. I love the entire vibe. There's a particular photo that you've taken. It's the top down of his helmet or him in the car, and it's just beautiful. Like the aesthetic, everything about it. I'd love to learn a bit more about what you're seeing from like a fanfare standpoint, what the change has been like. What have you observed?
His look and his image are outstanding, and Charles as well. There's a very nice balance between the two. Charles's white helmet, Lewis's yellow. Both of them are Ferrari colors. Both of them are meaningful to each driver. Lewis has often raced in yellow during his junior careers, and it does feel like he's going back to his roots. He's going back to his early days, and he's got this sort of excitement and passion. It's a pity the results aren't there consistently. It's a pity they got both disqualified in China. Amazing that Lewis
Hmm.
won the sprint race. I think that was a really good thing to have notched up. But yeah, there is a lot of positivity, a lot of real excitement around it. When we go to Imola, it's going to explode. I think that's going to be such a big race with the Tifosi, and
Yeah.
yeah, there. I think it's the right. There's sort of some driver moves that just feel right. This one really feels right. It feels so much better than the other big name moves that they've had over the years, Raikkonen or Alonso or even Vettel. This one just feels like it's the Formula One story just coming to an apex.
Yeah. I really hope the fairy tale comes true and
Yeah.
Lewis will win that official eighth drivers championship and it would be incredible. Well, another angle or I guess development in this season that I'm personally loving are the rookies and how many, fresh new faces there are, their energy, that Gen Z vibe, how genuine they are and transparent. I just absolutely love them. What is your take on the rookies? Who's delivering? Who's under delivering? And who do you think is not going to make it for the whole season?
So I think the top rookie so far must be Kimi Antonelli. He looks like he belongs already. He is. I'm completely amazed by that kid. He has so much energy, so much personality, and it's uninhibited. There doesn't seem to be anyone saying, "Hey, like, slow down, don't do this." They're giving him much more freedom and much more chance to express himself, and he's doing it brilliantly. His Australia drive, I thought, was phenomenal. It's one of the better drives I've seen in a very long time. Came from way down 12th or 14th or something,
Hmm.
up to fourth. Yeah, that was very, very good. And he's just honest in his interviews. He's very, very open, lovely kid. And yes, I think he's doing brilliantly. Twice as many points as Lewis already. And so Mercedes have done well.
Yeah.
Who else is doing well? Behrman's drive in China, I thought was outstanding, and even Japan, I thought he did pretty well. Isaac Hadjar's doing great. His drive last time out was phenomenal. Um,
Hmm.
if he hadn't been overtaken by Lewis, that race would have been the first time the top 10 finishers had all finished in the same place as they started on a permanent racetrack. But yeah, he's doing very well. Guys who are struggling, Gabriel Bortoleto is very hard to tell because he's in such a bad car and he is
Yeah.
up against such a good teammate that you can't really tell how well he's doing. I spoke to a few of the Sauber mechanics, and they say he's settling in really well. He's got a lot of hunger and passion, and I do think that he's probably at the end of it, when he gets into a good car, is going to be the driver of this class that rises to the top. So my money's
Really?
on Gabriel. Yeah, I think there's something special about him that I haven't seen for a long time. Yeah, so he's the one I think is going to do the best. We've spoken about Liam, and yeah, Jack's probably the one that's struggling the most, and it's not been made easy by how the team is treating him. So the fact that they signed Carlo Pinto as a reserve driver, they gave his FP1 to Ria, it doesn't set him up to succeed.
Yeah.
And the car not doing that well at the same time. There were quite a few moments in the race where he's quite close to Pierre, But at the times when you notice it, the qualifying, the fastest laps in practice, there's a gap. And that gap is putting a lot of pressure on him to succeed. And it would be sad if he doesn't make it because he is a hell of a nice kid. And yeah, I'd
Yeah.
really, really like to see him do well. But yeah, he is struggling at the moment. It could be as close as Miami if he doesn't. Like, I think he might have two races.
Well, you just made two predictions there, Michael. If Jack doesn't perform, out after Miami and Bortoleto rising to the top. You heard it here first. We'll see what happens. At Alpine, Flavio, he's like the old school team principal vibe. And, the way that you're describing the four reserve drivers just breathing down your neck, it's a very sink or swim kind of environment, it feels like. And it just feels like almost like complete opposite to how like Mercedes is taking the approach with developing Kimi. So it'll be interesting to see like, how these drivers thrive in those types of environments.
Yeah, but the Mercedes brought on Bottas, and that must have added pressure to Kimi. I think the way that they work is very good. Apparently, Bottas has been helping Kimi develop his skills, but to have someone, a race winner, championship contender, sitting in the reserve seat must have put pressure on Kimi as well. There's everywhere in Formula One, you do have to perform every week. The moment you don't, the pressure comes very, very quickly. It's a very vicious environment.
It can be, yes. So I am curious. So Fernando Alonso is Gabriel Bortoletto's agent, correct?
Yes,
And
yes.
how do you think Fernando is helping Gabriel? And for those that are, maybe a little less, know less about what agents do in a driver's career, I'd love if you elaborate on that. And there's a lot of ex Formula One drivers who are agents for current Formula One drivers. Another one that comes to mind is Mark Webber and Oscar Piastri. So yeah, would love your take on that.
Yeah. So I think Fernando's got a slightly different relationship to a traditional agent. I think he does more mentoring and support, and he's really helped put him in the right cars to get him into where he is now. Yeah, Gabriel's won both F2 and F3 at his first go, and his F3 win was particularly impressive because that team that he was with had never won the title before. So he was the second driver in that team, technically. He was the number two. So to have come from that and to have won the title, I think is very, very impressive. His last to first in Monza was an outstanding result. So he's definitely got the skills, and Fernando does give him a lot of advice. Apparently, before the start of the Australian race, Fernando said to him, like, whatever you do, watch out for the white lines, stay off the white. And Gabriel didn't, and he ended up in the wall. And Fernando also crashed doing the same
Yes.
thing. So I don't know how much the advice is helping. But yeah, Mark Webber has a very interesting relationship with Oscar Piastri. He wasn't really doing much agent work. Oscar's parents decided that they needed support to help Oscar kind of get into the next level. And Mark was the best Australian around that could help him. And it took Mark seeing Oscar and seeing him drive to convince him that this guy is special and worth investing his time. And he's gone hell for leather to make his career successful, choosing some really, really good career paths. He had a seat at Alpine.
Hmm.
Fernando was leaving. He had that seat. Alpine even announced it. But
I
Mark knew
remember.
that wasn't going to be a team that was going to win a championship. And he'd already signed him off at McLaren. And it didn't look like he would drive a McLaren. It looked like he'd have another year out being a reserve driver to Daniel and Lando. But that changed. He got the seat. And then it looked like it was a terrible decision when McLaren were at the back of the grid and Alpine were somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
And now it looks like it was inspired. Yeah. Managers can make careers because there was a chance that yeah, Oscar would have sat on the sidelines for a bit longer or not getting a drive with a top team. And yeah, it's hard to show your skills when you don't have that ability to to do well.
He's incredible. I mean, I am a diehard Lando fan, but I also really, really love Oscar, and I really envy his ability to remain calm, and how he's just so even keeled, but he's also so funny. Like he has the
Yes.
most sarcastic, dry humor. I often see him laughing to himself in press conferences at like, what Max is saying or someone else, and I just think he's like so bottled up. I just want him to just open up a little bit more, but his personality is like two sides to it.
I really like to think that at that moment he's thought of something hilarious to say, but then he's thought, well, I better not say that. And occasionally he can't help himself, and this little line will pop out, and it's brilliant. It's yeah. He has. If this doesn't work out, a stand-up comedian career would be very 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 good for him. But I think
Definitely.
his partner Lily is also super calm and really, I think, helps stabilize him quite a lot. Like there's a lot of deep nurtured love between the two of them, and I think that
Yeah.
they really they really kind of support each other. And I think her calmness and her practicality kind of goes with him as well. Excited to see more about what Oscar's going to do this year.
Me too. Yeah, Lily seems to be a pretty private person. I
Yeah,
don't know, socially, like on social media, but I think they've been together for many years. Are they high school sweethearts?
yeah, I believe so. She's
Yeah.
she's a mechanical engineer, and she actually works for McLaren on designing parts for his race cars. So that's very sweet. But yeah,
I did not know that. That's very cool.
definitely more. I think she's yeah, kind of wants to be seen for her in her own right rather than just being the girlfriend of.
Oscar. Yeah. Let's move on to one other topic that I'm curious if you're hearing a lot of whispers about, which is luck and the driver market. Silly seasons typically in the summer, but all those conversations I'm sure starting happening already. I read a headline that Checo is being considered for some experience on a brand new team. What are you hearing as potential drivers?
I heard that he had already signed for Chev.
Checo?
I don't. Yeah, but I don't know if my source is 100% accurate. But yeah, it looks like that might happen. It would make sense because he comes with oodles of money and lots of experience. And I think people are now realizing that he wasn't as bad as that Red Bull made him look.
Yes.
And he's the right sort of driver for a team that's coming in the midfield. His technical feedback is very very good, and yeah, he would be a very good asset to them. That second seat would be quite exciting to see who gets that.
Into the run.
Well, we've got Colton Herta, I think, is one option. He's already with Chev in IndyCar. He's tested in Formula One. He looks very quick. He looks a bit crashy, but he looks very quick. He looks like he is a lot of fun. He's come to a few of the Grand Prix weekends in America, and he is an absolute hoot. He would be brilliant in Formula One. So Ward would be another very, very good option. Again, does a lot of stuff with McLaren. Hell of a nice guy. Absolutely massive following in Mexico. He went, the last time we were there, he was there as a reserve driver, and there was a huge, huge, huge amount of support for him at autograph signings and things like that. Yeah, I think if they go for Checo, they've got to go for someone who's a bit younger and a bit of personality. I think they need to be a bit risky with that second seat.
So you don't think it's going to be Bess or Daniel?
No, no. I I don't think it would be great having Checo and Bottas on the same team.
Yeah. Well, it's, they have a brand to build in F1.
Yeah.
So obviously results matter. And they need to find, pick the, fast drivers, but it'll be interesting to see how they shape the narrative of their brand as well once they start.
Yeah, it's a pity Daniel. I think Daniel has ruled himself out of that seat already, which is a pity because he is the right sort of a personality for it. He's got huge following in America. He's got oodles of personality, and yeah, it would be nice to see him start again on a car that he had more influence on how its development direction went.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move on to obviously the girls at Milkshake. Michael, love fashion and the runway shots that, we highlight after each race weekend. Obviously, Lewis is an icon, but who is someone that we should be paying more attention to?
Charles, I think, is probably the next best dressed. I don't know if you saw what he was wearing at the London opening show, but he looked so good then. Black tux, yeah, really, really good. Pierre is another really well dressed, very good looking young man. Yeah, I'd keep an eye on Pierre. I think he's got some good outfits. Nico Hulkenberg's a little bit of a dark horse. He often
Hmm.
sneaks in the back door, so we don't get to see him too often. But when he does dress up, he's very yeah, he has some very, very good outfits, and he is very, very good looking. So as a clothes horse, yeah, he does very well. Lando is developing quite a nice style, that sort of very casual, cool casual look. And the stuff that he wears is very much in his comfort zone. Whereas Lewis kind of pushes the boundaries quite a lot. And Lewis has a lot more freedom in what he can wear because I think he's got a lot more confidence in his clothing choices. Who else
Yeah,
would be
no,
good?
I see Charles and his pants, he has, because I think that they are not allowed to wear whatever they want for every race, right? As part of their contracts, they must wear the team gear. Is that a fair assumption?
I think it's contract by contract. And Charles tends to wear team kit uh, arriving most days. But I think Lewis has managed to work it into his contract that he
Yeah.
can wear fashion. And it also depends if they've got a clothing brand assigned to them. So when Pierre and Yuki were at AlphaTauri is obviously Red Bull's clothing brand, they would come in some brilliant outfits, but it was on the brand. So yeah, so it's team by team and driver by driver.
I mean, we're all for it.
George. George is another very, very stylish. He's got a very specific English country gent sort of thing going.
Yes.
Yeah, I could be shooting pheasants or I could be driving racing cars.
Yeah. No, we love George. I know I poke fun at him all the time, but we do love George. We love all of them. But yes, I think Charles is a sleeper. His jeans game is incredible, and obviously, you see him like outside of the track, and him and Alex look amazing together. And on that note, let's talk about the wives and girlfriends, Michael. So, who comes to every race? Who's the most popular? I think I know the answer to that, but yeah, who makes the most appearances?
I think it's Kiko, probably. She definitely comes to a lot of the races that the other girls don't. Last year it
Hmm.
was Tiffany, I think. I think Tiffany was there the most.
Yeah.
Well, actually, technically last year's Fernando Alonso's girlfriend was there, but that's only because she was working. Um,
Okay.
yeah, Kika comes to a lot, and it's quite hard to know who's the most popular. Alex is right up there.
Hmm.
Yeah, Alex, Kika, one of those two, I'd say. Who do you think
Does
it
Lily
is?
come to all the races because she is with McLaren?
No, most of her work is back at the factory. So she was in Japan, but that was the first race I'd seen her at this year. I think
Right.
she probably comes to six or seven, maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean Alex very popular. Kika, I mean we love seeing, their styles and obviously their support of them. We want to see more of their puppies and their dogs with them as well. I don't
Yeah.
know, have you seen them yet this year? Simba,
No.
Leo? No, not made an appearance yet.
Yeah, Kika was sneaking her dog into quite a few tracks towards the end of last year, but I haven't seen anyone yet. I think we'll see them more when they come to the European races,
Right.
possibly Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, let's move on a little bit to a bit of your day-to-day, Michael. So I am curious, how many days or months per year are you on the
Well, that's a good question. It's a lot. So this trip is going to be 2 months. And I think the end of year from Baku onwards is going to be a 3 month trip. So yeah, those are two big chunks because you have these sort of weekends in between races where it's impossible to fly back home. So you invariably stay out. And yeah, so there's a long patch away from home, especially with these. We've got a triple header at the moment, and these triple headers are
Yes. Yeah. How do you deal with the jet lag?
I'm getting quite good at that, I think. Of trying to adjust your time to where you're going to be as soon as possible is the most important thing, and making sure you stay up. But also taking some things with you to help. So I always have my own pillow, so
Okay.
that I'm. It just feels a little bit more normal having the same pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah, got a very nice sleeping mask as well, which does help a lot because
Okay. Nice.
a lot of hotels don't have great curtains and great windows. Yeah, those
Yeah.
two things are essential, I think.
Well, I know George travels with a personal duvet. When I heard
Okay.
that, that
Yeah,
is insane to be traveling with your own duvet. It must take at least one bag.
it's a good idea though.
What is your favorite city that you've been to on the racing calendar to shoot at? And also, which one's the worst to shoot at?
Ooh. That's a very, very, very tricky. I think Monaco is my favorite still. The track is very, very small and it's very easy to get around, and there's so much variation between the harbour and the city. There's so much glamour. The yachts, the yacht parties,
Yeah,
it's just dripping in style. It is such a good race. Not so much from a race point of view on Sunday, but everything else around it is phenomenal. Nothing else in
yeah.
Formula One comes anywhere near that. Worst one? Oh, that's a bit tricky. There are a couple that are difficult to get into. China's a difficult country to get into because of the visa situation. They are making steps to make that easier, so hopefully that'll be better next year. Yeah, each race gives you something nice. I don't think there's one that I dread going to. I think each of them gives you something if you put the effort in. And it's such a vast variety of countries that we go to that there's a lot of difference everywhere, which is keeps everything very interesting. So I think China's probably the hardest one.
And what about the best bands?
Best bands? Best
Band.
fans, sorry. I was like, gosh. Well, we did have Fatboy Slim in Australia, and best fans, yeah, that's a tricky one because there's a few places that produce phenomenal fans. So Japan,
Hmm.
Monza, Imola, Zandvoort, Austria, I think are the best fan track. Most knowledgeable fans, Austin, Texas. Everyone there seems to know
Really?
exactly what's going on to a high degree of yeah, they're yeah, super informed fans. Yeah, I think anyone who goes to the Canadian
I
Grand Prix
thought,
has got a lot of stamina. I think that's a tough race to do because it's often wet. It's really difficult to get onto the island, and yeah, you need to be prepared for all four seasons.
I thought you were going to say most educated fans would be Silverstone because, the
Yeah.
been racing a long time.
Yeah, the Brits are right up there, but I think there's a level of just desire to know everything about it that the fans that go to the Austin race seem to have more than anyone else. I was at the airport listening to two guys working security, and they were talking about the rev limiter of Formula One cars. I was amazed that people outside the track were talking about it for a start, and then the kind of detail that they were going into was, yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
Although my first trip to Austin, I had an American photographer next to me, and he asked me, he was going through his keywording for the photograph, and he's like, "Well, I've got to write the descriptions. Can I say that Max Verstappen from the Netherlands, sorry, Max Verstappen from Team Netherlands, driving a Red Bull? Is that right?" I'm like, no, no, no. His team is Red Bull, and he's okay. So Lewis Hamilton is Team UK. No, no, he's Team. Yeah. So,
Right.
but it's improved a lot since then.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean that, at Milkshake, we're focused on the North American market because everyone is super hungry to learn more and very curious. And so, yes,
Yeah.
I can relate. Um, all right, Michael, let's move on to this really fun photo series that
Okay.
I'd like to do with you. So I have picked out, I think, about 7 photos that I'm going to show you. And I'd love for you to take us through that moment and of the energy and the vibe around it and anything surprising that we might not know in that moment. All right, so let's take it back to the beginning of the year when you photographed the F1 driver kind of school photo, at your graduating class or starting class of the year. What was the energy of that shoot like?
So we weren't supposed to photograph that. I had gone to the. It was very, very hush hush about what was happening. I found out from a few team photographers that something was going to happen at 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'd worked out roughly where it was going to be. So I went and sort of camped outside the entrance, and I was trying to get shots of the drivers arriving. And then, as soon as they all arrived, someone from F1 TV opened the door and said, "Hey, do you want to come inside?" So I came in, and there's a few other photographers there. We managed to shoot the whole thing. But there was only a handful of us, and we had a special area that we could stand in. So we couldn't do the same shot that you see on TV. But it went on for quite a long time. And it was quite funny watching each of the drivers, how they dealt with the instructions from the director, how they interacted with each other. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. It took a long time to get the shot that you see on probably about 20 minutes, I think.
Mm.
And each one of these guys is so excited about driving their cars for the first time on track. That's all they want to do. And here they have to sort of stand on this and follow instructions. And all of them are kind of fidgeting and they're all sort of nervous and they all want to sort of just get out of there. So yeah, it was a very cool experience. Max and Charles had a lot of time chatting to each other. Kimmy was just sort of sitting there grinning like a Cheshire cat. It was the best day ever. And they put poor Yuki on a tire all by himself in the front, and they should have definitely put him in a stronger position. Yeah, it was an interesting choice of of situations for each driver.
That's funny. Right place, right time. And when you talk about Kimmy grinning, it just reminds me of, those kids when they're like, first day of kindergarten, they hold up the board. All right, let's move on to the next photo. So the next photo I thought was just so heartwarming. Lando's parents congratulating Lando on the first win of the year, which was a crazy race, the Australian Grand Prix. So take us through this moment.
So yeah, I don't see his mum at the races as much as his dad. His dad is pretty much there every single one, and seeing her there was so special. Yeah, he kind of got out of the car, went straight to them. Yeah, she looked so happy, so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful, really really nice.
They seem like such a great family.
Yeah,
I think there were some shots of her in the garage and she was so nervous when I saw the reaction when Oscar spun out and she almost, I think maybe even she got up and had to walk away. Very, very sweet.
yeah, yeah. His dad's hilarious. He's one of the funniest guys around. He's yeah, an absolute hit.
Nice. All right, next photo, Kimmy and Lewis.
It was a really nice moment where they're both at press conference together, and the question was put to Lewis, what does he think of Kimmy and how he's doing? And Lewis was so excited and he had so much admiration for Kimmy, how well he's done so far. And it was beautiful seeing this older driver praising this younger driver, giving him so much support and encouragement. And I can't remember at one point one of them made a joke, and both of them are just creasing. It was a really nice, heartfelt moment. They've obviously worked together at Mercedes. They've been there for each other. I remember when Kimi was doing his testing, Lewis would always come over and give him a hug and a bit of encouragement. So I think even though they're in different teams now, there's a big bond between the two of them, and yeah,
Yeah,
it was just nice to see.
I I think I fell in love with Kimmy then. He was so
Yeah,
eloquent too. He's, such a kid. Lewis is like that cool older cousin. I want to be you and, in the next 10 years. I
yeah.
honestly would love to talk to Bono. What's it like from being the engineer for the most experienced guy on the grid to the youngest kid on the grid is probably such a
Mm.
change for Bono. It must be pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think Kimmy's bringing Bono some life back again, making
Yeah.
him feel young again.
Yeah. All right, next photo. So this was the 1-2 with McLaren at Shanghai. And I would love to, get your perspective on McLaren's dominance this season so far. And also Zach. What do you think about Zach?
Zach is brilliant. He's got that right amount of cheeky, and he has transformed that team. When he took over, McLaren were in a terrible situation, and he's really galvanized the team, put the right people in the right places, given them the space to succeed, and he has done phenomenally well. And he's fun. He's a racing driver. He's got that kind of racing spirit in him, and he's the right person to be leading McLaren. He often gets more excited than his drivers. If there's one negative about the two McLaren drivers, is they're not the best celebrators. Yeah, they need to learn how to punch the air and jump around a bit more.
Yeah. Well, Zach celebrates for both of them.
McLaren, I think, are going to be kicking themselves because they have been the most dominant car and they've only got 1 point ahead of Max. So they've left points on the table. They need to really close out these next two races while they have this big advantage. Most of the teams will be bringing upgrades to Miami or Imola, and you don't know what's going to happen in those upgrade rounds. So they could lose that advantage. It's a slender advantage, but it is significant. So yeah, they need to maximize these next two.
Yeah, no, I can actually hear them almost downplaying the fact that they're so good, so that I don't know, maybe there's less focus on that. But yeah, we'll see. I often think if I'm ever on the receiving end of one of Zach's high fives, will my wrist be able to handle the force of a high five?
Or a
uh,
handshake.
or yeah, yeah. Okay, so next one here, Lewis's first win, even though a sprint win. What was the energy around this particular moment?
Lewis was so happy to get a win, any win in your second race with a team. That's really really good. And yeah, he looked so happy. Again, not too dissimilar for winning his first race. It was a great result for him. And yeah, it's nice to see him genuinely happy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. This weekend I feel was so or that was Shanghai, and it was so
Yeah.
overshadowed by Liam doing so poorly that I actually forgot about Lewis winning the sprint by the end of it. But hopefully
Yeah. And
it's a tease for what's
well,
to come.
Lewis getting disqualified, he winning the
Right?
sprint and getting disqualified in the next race is such a yo-yo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel that Ferrari probably needed one more cycle, one more year of these engine regs. It feels like they're going through a lot of teething problems at the moment, and they're kind of missing out on points. They're so far behind where they have a car that should be number two, I think. It just doesn't seem to be gelling for them for some reason.
Yeah. All right, we got two more to go. So next one here was this insane crash that Jack had, where he talked about trying, or he had tried using the DRS around turn one of Suzuka, and it was possible on the simulator, so he wanted to try it on track. As someone watching this, I was scared. I thought, like if this was a previous generation, like one of the older cars, I think he wouldn't be with us anymore. It was an insane accident.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't see the accident itself. I was shooting cars coming up from turn two, but the turn one was in my field of vision. So I heard it and I looked over and I saw the car stopped. And it took a very long time for him to get out. Normally, you'd see something, you'd see the headrest coming off, or you'd see some movement. I didn't see anything. And when the medical car stopped and the guy ran over to him and he still didn't come out, it took a really, really long time before anything happened. I was very, very worried. And you kind of photographing this thinking, if something's happened to him, that you're not going to show anyone these pictures because it wouldn't be right. But at the same
Right.
time, documenting them for the team or for health and safety, I think is also quite an important exercise. There was a similar kind of reaction when Zhou Guanyu crashed in Silverstone. And he got stuck between the tire
Yes, I
barrier and
remember.
the fence. And again, it took a really long time for him to come out. But photographing all of that was important because there was a problem with the safety there. There shouldn't have been that gap. This car shouldn't have got stuck
Mm.
where it was. If that car got stuck there and it caught on fire, there'll be no way that he could get out. And so recording that to help Formula One improve their safety is important, even if what you're photographing does send shivers down your spine.
Mhm. Yeah, I was very glad to see that he was able to hop out of the car. I don't know I'd love to know, what do you have a concussion from that? Like are you just very bruised up?
Yeah. Well, he did get fully tested afterwards because it is a huge concussion rate. I don't know what the G-force on that crash was, but the crash that Max had at Silverstone in 21, the amount of G-force that was on him going through that corner was insane. And I imagine Liam was a similar sort of thing. He was going so fast, and it
Hmm.
was such a big shunt.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, glad to see that he was okay. We'll close on one more, and you kind of talked about this earlier, the little surprise that Racing Bulls had for Liam when he came into Tokyo. What was the energy like here?
Well, I was a bit, it must have been hard for him. That sort of first arrival after being demoted can't have been nice. And they'd sort of set up just around the corner, so he had to walk through the gates and up a short passageway before he could see them. And the moment he turned around the corner and saw everyone, like his hands went to his face, and he had this sort of genuine surprise and happiness to see the team there.
Yeah.
And it was a special moment. He really looked happy, and that kind of made you feel that he is going to make a success out of this. He is going to turn this time at Racing Bulls into something that helps develop him as a racing driver and pushes him forward. Uh,
Yeah, I thought it was a really nice moment for them to do something like that for him and kind of immediately change his mood around.
yeah,
So nice. Okay, Michael, before we let you go, we are going to end with a milkshake tradition, checkered confessions. I'm going to ask you a series of 10 questions. I just want your initial gut reaction to these 10 questions. Are you ready?
yeah,
All right. Who is the most photogenic driver?
yes.
One team you would party with versus one team you want to go on vacation with.
Party with Red Bull. Go on vacation with Ferrari.
Night race or day race?
Night race.
Street track or regular track?
Street track.
Favorite city on the F1 calendar?
Monaco.
Which driver knows his angles the best?
Max.
Interesting. Most iconic photo you've ever taken. First one that pops in your head.
The two Red Bulls in Baku.
One driver you wish you could have shot. It doesn't need to be a current driver on the grid.
Senna.
If the FIA let you make one rule change, what would it be?
Shoot through barriers on head-on, highly dangerous, but like, yeah, to be able to shoot through the barriers on corners where the cars are coming directly at you would be lovely.
Okay, last one. Finish this sentence. The paddock is most chaotic when?
5 minutes before the race.
Nice. Michael, thank you so much. You have officially joined the Milkshake Inner Circle. We are so grateful for you spending some time with us today. And for everyone watching, this is the end of this particular interview, but stay tuned for more in our photographer series in the coming weeks. So thank you, Michael. So great to see you.
Thank you very much.